Hi, my name is Dave Reske, CEO of Now Speed Marketing, and welcome to this edition of Marketing in the Now, where we focus on uncovering the myths of marketing and leadership with some of the world's most interesting people. And my guest today is Chris Kirsch. Chris is a go-to-market executive turned marketing consultant with 25 years of experience in B2B cybersecurity. Most recently, he co-founded and was CEO of a VC-backed company that grew to a valuation of over 190 million within 3 years. Before that, he managed sales and marketing functions, raised VC funding, participated in one IPO, and is an expert in product marketing. Chris, welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Consultant, CEO, sales and marketing exec. Wow, I'm tired just thinking about all the stuff that you've done. It's exciting. Wow, we could spend a whole show just talking about the pros and cons of each role. But briefly, what do you like about your current role as a consultant?
I get bored easily, so I love to dip my fingers into many pies and learn new things, learn new business model, learn new companies, and so yeah, so I really enjoy it for that reason.
That's great, and I'm sure with all your experience, you bring a lot to the table in every engagement that you're working on. Well, as you know, I like to start these shows with what I call a mythbuster question, and the myth that we've talked about is around CRO. And the myth we want to explore is that the most effective strategy for CRO is to focus on landing page optimization. And as an agency, we do a lot of that. So we're often the guys who are running ad campaigns. We want to do landing page optimization, but we want to explore this myth that the most effective way to do CRO is focus on that landing page. It's true or not true?
Partially true. And before we jump into the topic, for the people that are trying to follow along online, CRO can mean a couple of things. It can mean Chief Revenue Officer. That's not what we're talking about today, but we're talking about conversion rate optimization. So how do I increase the conversion rate of what you're talking about, in this case, a landing page? David, when you and I chatted to prep for this interview, we said we wanted to focus in on PLG, product-led growth. So any kind of sales motion, either e-commerce or B2B enterprise sales, where you start off with a free offer that can be a trial or a community edition or an open source version, and then end up ideally converting a customer to a paid customer. And so when we're thinking about that, the landing page is not just one part of the journey, is not the entire journey, it's just one part of the journey. It's a little bit different, I guess, than from just a white paper download or something like that, which also fits into a longer sales journey, but it's a more human-driven one. If you've got BDRs following up and those kind of things, you can still plan out the other steps. But especially when you do a product-led growth sales motion, you should really consider the entire journey. So the way I think about it is, it starts when people land on the website, and you need to have one goal in mind of what you want these people to do, right? I've seen companies that are fuzzy about the goal, and in one call to action they say buy this, and in the other one they say try this, and the other one says learn this. When you have a sales motion that's focused around PLG, I think it's really best practice to try and focus on the PLG trial path as a primary thing. And it could be a trial, it could be a free version. We can talk about the different options a little bit later. So A/B testing of the landing page is one part. But it starts when people come to your website, and it stops much, much, much later when they're in the product and then converting to become a paid customer.
Well, let's take a little bit of a step back, because you talked about a couple things here, and I think that this idea of really understanding the buyer's journey feels like it's really key to getting this right. And so talk about how you've gone about, or how you think about the buyer's journey, because I think sometimes as an agency, we get involved in one piece, right? Your job is to spend money on advertising, drive to a landing page, and get a result. Conversion, sale, download, a lead, some types of thing like that. But from your perspective as a CMO, as a CEO, you're thinking about it more broadly, and you're thinking about the whole buyer's journey. So tell me about how you learn about the buyer's journey, how you think about it, and deal with the complexity that's
Yeah.
there.
So now we're going a little bit off of the PLG topic, but it's still relevant. When I think about the buyer's journey, I think about it in, with my product marketing background. So I I think that the buyer's journey starts before a company ever talks to you as a company, right? It's when they first become aware that how they're doing things today isn't really working. And then they're, starting to soften up their idea of like, oh, we're going to keep it on doing this way. And then they're saying like, oh, actually, it doesn't work that great. Like, what other alternatives are out there? And they start researching. And so this is your first opportunity as a marketer to actually, well, I guess it already starts earlier. You can seed discontent with your audience, right? If you're doing a very, very top of the funnel awareness campaign, seed discontent with the status quo, then educate them about other options of how you can do things better. Then typically the buyer starts researching different options. That's a huge opportunity for marketers to get inbound leads when people start Googling for solutions or researching solutions. And then, let's say in a PLG motion, maybe the next step is that people will sign up for a trial. And then it really depends on what kind of product you have and what kind of sales motion you have. Maybe the next step is that you look for people that exhibit certain traits in the trial, certain behavior that tells you that this is a serious buyer. Some buying signals could be if one user invites a second user to the trial, right? That's usually a good buying signal. If it's a multi-user product, B2B, it means it's probably not a guy in a garage. It's somebody in a company who's now showing this to a colleague. Another buying intent signal might be that you get over a certain level of usage, number of machines, number of users that are captured in the system, maybe not users that log in, but that are captured in the systems, certain credits that they're starting to use and use up, certain integrations that they do with the application. So now you have certain buying intent signals, and you can then react to those. You can either trigger automated emails, or you can have a salesperson reach out and schedule a meeting. You can try to surround that buyer and research all of the other buyers. In a B2B enterprise sale, I'm always assuming that there is more than one buyer. There's your champion who's evaluating the product right now, but there's the economic buyer. There are the gatekeepers like procurement and legal. There are the user buyers that have to work with the solution afterwards, and so on. So as a company with a B2B sales motion, you probably want to start reaching out, identifying these other folks and starting to sell into them. And then you want to get the technical win as part of, we're still on the buyer's journey, right? Technical win. Then you go into procurement or a technical win and also showing the ROI or the business case of the solution. Then you go into procurement and legal, and then you close the deal. So, and the buyer's journey then actually kind of continues with post-sales, right? Your customer success team that then makes sure that they onboard the customer. If you have a SaaS product with a subscription model, you want to make sure that you increase your chances that it's not becoming shelfware, that you get the money again the next year. So when we think about the buyer's journey in a PLG motion, we can keep all of that in mind. And for example, I'm talking to one company right now. They have a solution that is targeted at developers. So the developers are the ones that download the trial, but they will have to make the business case to their economic buyer to actually get the funding, because developers don't have that much of a budget typically. And so part of the PLG motion and the buyer's journey will be to include an ROI calculator. This is a solution that lends itself to that. I work a lot in cybersecurity, so cybersecurity is very difficult to calculate an ROI for. They are in a developer productivity environment, and one of their two primary value propositions is that they're saving companies a lot of money. So let's quantify that, right? And help the technical champion put together a business case for the economic buyer. And this is often where deals fall through in a technical sale, because to the developer, it's so damn obvious why this is a good solution why the company should be buying this, but they often have trouble articulating it to a business audience. So helping them make that argument is really important.
So I think you said you talked about a lot of things on the buyer's journey. And it
Hmm.
strikes me that there's a lot of content that's required all the way through that process, right? You talked about
Yeah,
seeking discontent, educating on options, researching options,
yeah.
product information, obviously, business case development, ROI, all of those things. And thinking about those things for different buyer personas, right? The
Hmm.
economic buyer, the technical buyer, the user buyer. That's a lot of content. So, as marketers, do we think about, and we were talking about, conversion rate optimization. Do we think about CRO at every one of those points? Or do we think about it
Um,
at one point, the entry
yeah,
point
I
into the
yeah,
sales funnel?
good question. So the before people hit your website, it's really hard to calculate conversion rates, right? Because you don't know what they're reading. Like they might be reading something on a third-party website or whatever. Also, as a company, you need to pick your battles. The buyer's journey is one thing. It's what the buyer does. If you're a very small company, you might not have the budget to see discontent broadly in the market.
Hmm.
So you might just need to identify people who've made the decision to make a change. And so you just capture demand at that stage. And it also depends on, are you the only one in your category? Like, is there enough discontent in the market with the status quo that it works for you? Or do you need to, generate more demand? So it really depends on the situation. And then later on in the funnel, I like to look at all the things that I can measure. And on the website, that's fairly easy. I can take Google Analytics or similar tools, and I can say, all right, how many people hit the website, unique visitors, how many get to the landing page, how many convert on the landing page. And then typically you start going outside of Google Analytics because now it's in the product. So it might be, okay, if it's a downloadable product, how many people do the download? If it's a SaaS product, how many people actually complete the initial setup in the product? How far do they get in the product? You have, in the same way that you have the first initial goal to take somebody to a, let's say, trial or free version on the website, you should have a goal of like, what are the steps that you want people to complete in the trial so that they have a good experience, that they get the shortest path to value in the product, and you guide them through that. And what steps can you measure on that path to value that gives you a conversion rate from each step to the next? So usually I end up tracking this either in Excel or in some dashboarding platform. It all depends on how mature the company is and whether they can support that. But Excel works just fine to start out. You don't need to over-engineer things. And you look at, okay, like what would I expect as conversion rates and where do I have a much lower conversion rate? There's this one company I'm working with, and they have a B2B product. It's infrastructure security, and their product sells like gangbusters. But from people who come to the website to people who sign up for the trial, and they have a free version too, they only have a 0.8% conversion rate, which is super low. And so if you think about that one step, industry, like best in class kind of companies, I would say is about 5 to 7%-ish, So between 0.8 and 5 to 7%, there's a big gap. If they were able to streamline their website and just get from 0.8 to 1.6, it's not a huge jump, right? I mean, it's a huge jump in terms of percentage, but in terms of if you have 100% to capture, getting an extra 0.8% isn't all that hard, right? That little jump could double their revenue.
Yeah.
Right? And you can only start identifying that when you see all the conversion steps in the whole funnel.
Yeah, and I like the way that you're thinking about it completely holistically, like that,
Yeah,
really from end to end. Because you're thinking about it not only like you're talking about the website visitor to
yeah,
that initial lead, but then you're thinking about it all the way through the product.
yeah,
step. And that's really critical because if you, like in your example, you could double the conversion rate to the website leads, but if you, maybe you don't address a shortfall, a fall off from, going from
Yeah,
product trial to product purchase or product usage, then it's, it could be meaningless. So
yeah,
you're
yeah,
thinking about it really like holistically all the way through.
yeah. So in the last company that I worked at, we saw a big drop off inside the product. They signed up for the product, but then they couldn't get from step A to B. And so this was basically a UX project. We worked with the UX designers and said, like, we need to get people from here to here. How can we improve that? How can we
Mhm.
optimize that, right? And yeah, did a redesign and got the numbers up. But you need to see that and know that and track it over time to see what kind of changes have a positive effect. And in some cases, it's very obvious that you're not guiding people through the website in the right way.
Mhm.
But then there is a point in time where you think like, okay, I've done all of the major things that I can think of. I can think of like little things, but I can't think of any major things right now. And so there's two things that you can do at that point. Number one, do some usability tests. There's websites like usertesting.com where you can hire people with a certain profile. You can say, I want a network admin, I want a marketer, I want a something, and I want them to go through my website and complete certain tasks. You just say, download and install this software. And then they do a screen recording. They're coached to verbalize what they're thinking as they're going through the process. Oh, I can't find this button right now. Like, what does this button mean? Like, et cetera, et cetera. And it's a huge insight. Like, even conversion paths, where I've like poured over the pages for days and weeks and months, I've learned so many new things of where people get stuck. And sometimes it's weird things. Like, I work in security. Some of the tools that I've sold are tools that test the security systems in big companies.
Mhm.
So they're sometimes flagged by malware software or anti-malware software as being malicious.
Mhm.
One of the usability tests showed that, and I was like, nobody could install this thing because the antivirus was flagging it. So now we could figure out, okay, like, how do we coach people ahead of time to say like, hey, this is going to happen and this is how you complete the next step, right? Um, so yeah, so usability tests help a ton, especially if something's not converting and you don't quite know why. You'll see different mindsets coming to your website with different technology. They might be using a Mac instead of a PC or vice versa, or a different browser, or they don't have enough disk space or something that you didn't anticipate in your testing. And then the other thing that you can do is A/B testing. And you started out with a mythbuster like, hey, we should be doing A/B testing to optimize landing pages. Yes, you should, but you should also optimize not just the landing page, but each part on the website. So one thing I did, I had at one point in my career, I had one website that had really high traffic. It was fantastic because it was like my sandbox for experiments. And when I was writing messaging, so not even PLG, like messaging for that product, I A/B tested different headlines and saw which one got the higher conversion to the download, right? So it helped me with PLG, but I also fed that back into the messaging that I used on other properties where I can't measure it, like trade show banners and stuff can't measure that, right? But I knew from experiments which messaging converts and which one doesn't, right?
And in that area, did you find that it was most helpful to measure those tests through paid targeted ads or through organic traffic on the website, or was it
For
another
that
source of
website,
traffic?
I don't think we did any ads.
It was just
Uh,
it was just
it
organic
was it
traffic.
was an open source software with
Yeah.
a commercial option, and we just had a ton of traffic from the open source. This was the open source website, not
Oh,
even
I
the
see.
commercial
Yeah,
website, right?
that's great.
And so we were able to test with that. You can also test ads. That's another way. Like if you don't have enough traffic on the website, test ads with different messaging and see what converts better.
Yeah, and the nice thing about the ad testing is you can control a little bit of the targeting. One of the things that I've observed in your example of like low conversion rates, sometimes a client will be frustrated when they have low conversion rates, but low conversion rates can also be a symptom of high organic traffic in non-relevant keywords. So lots of times your SEO team is
Yeah, yeah,
rewarded
yeah.
getting a lot of traffic and keyword visibility, but they're not necessarily targeted on the right personas or the right buyers. They're just getting as much traffic as possible. They put out some hot article on a cool topic and they get all this traffic, but that doesn't necessarily convert. So you might have a low conversion rate, but it's because your organic is working
Yeah, yeah,
over time on the wrong things.
yeah.
So I think, kind of controlling for that variable, getting the right conversion rate numbers on the right kind of traffic is hard, because you don't always control for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we're coming back to this whole idea of conversion rate optimization on different pages at different levels. What are your kind of go-to set of techniques that you think about? What has kind of worked well for you? What's
Yeah.
that the low-hanging fruit that you always go to that says, hey, if we do this, it's going to be our best bet stuff.
Okay. It really depends. So I'm working on a conversion path right now where the landing page was written by a technical person and not by a marketer. So it's extremely long. It asks questions that you don't have to ask right now. You can ask those when you have a support case and you need to know the actual environments, et cetera, right? So shortening the form, that's kind of like, it's motherhood and apple pie, right? It's not really, like every marketer would start there, right? I find that the most ideas I've actually learned from a website called marketingexperiments.com. It's a company out of the US that does a lot of conversion rate optimization. They don't focus on PLG, they focus on conversion rate optimization across all, like often consumer goods. And I love their style because they always say like, here's the original page. What would you change? And then like, here's the hypothesis that we had. And here's how we set up the test. And then they let the audience vote on which one do you think won? And sometimes, the original one, and sometimes the variant one. And I also love the delivery because the guy who presents most of these videos is the son of a Southern preacher. So he talks about conversion rate optimization like he's standing in church. And I didn't know this about him, that he was the son of a preacher. And I always described him this way. And then I heard an interview with him and he actually mentioned that fact. And I'm like, oh, that makes total sense, right? So it's just like he's just really engaging and really passionate and like, all in. And I learned a lot there. So when you craft headlines, for example, or calls to action, one thing I learned is, number one, start with an action word. That's kind of like, that's again, motherhood and apple pie, but also often there is two parts of a call to action. Do this to get that, right? Like sign up here to get a free copy. What I learned is that when you put in, and as a marketer, we think about like the sign up part is the important part. We want the person to sign up. So we say, sign up here to get a free copy. But if you turn that around and think about it from the buyer's perspective, it's like, get a free copy, sign up here. The buyer wants to get a free copy. That's what you should put in the beginning of the sentence, right? And so it's those little things, and you can try them out. I mean, now we're already, pretty deep down in the weeds of like, we've got a PLG motion that works and we're just doing like micro optimization. But when I write the landing pages and think about the original copy and start out, those are kind of things that I pay attention to.
Yeah.
Right.
So there are things you can do, at that landing page level that'll improve. But let me come back to that original premise because we just have a few minutes left. It's that, that thinking about the entire buyer's journey and the product experience is that strategic thinking is going to give you more leverage. It feels like we can do things like the headline and the forums and all those things. And those are things we don't want to forget about. But if you don't have the right content for the buyer's journey, you don't have the website set up to catch and convert that, you don't have the product experience set up, you're not going to get the end result, which is happy customers who are paying you for a long time, right? Yeah.
I think my background as a product marketer helps me a ton because I'm very close to the products team and understand the buyer, understand the technology and all of those things. And so if you understand that part, it really helps to really grok. Is that a term that you understand? Like it's from a book, I think. Okay. To really deeply understand the what's driving a person through that journey and what would play well with them and what wouldn't. So knowledge of the buyer, I think, is super important. And knowing their world a little bit. For example, this company I was talking about before, when you have a solution for developers and you have the landing page, have a button there where they can just log on with their GitHub account. Every developer on the planet, well, mostly speaking, will have a GitHub account, right? So now you're removing a lot of friction from that sign-up process. But it might not work for a different type of product. This other company that does the infrastructure products, they only do infrastructure products for Microsoft environments. So maybe then there is an Azure account or a Microsoft 365 account that you use for a social login, right? But always have the fallback of a form, because some people in some companies it's blocked, some people are not comfortable, with a single login and so on, the social login. So I think it all comes from knowledge of the buyer, what they're looking for, how they work, what kind of tools they use. Like all of these things are important.
Yeah, so really thinking that through end to end. And it strikes me that you've got to have, well, either somebody who's brilliant and deeply experienced like you that knows it kind of end to end, so knowing the product strategy, the experience, and marketing and design and all that, or maybe a cross-functional team. You've got to have product marketing involved. You've got to have the UX UI team. You got to have the web team. You got to have the advertising. You got to think through SEO. You got to think through all of the end-to-end content, right? All of that content strategy has to. And a lot of companies don't do that. They just kind of say, I just want to spend $1 and get $2 back, make me 90 pages. Yeah. So I appreciate your strategic perspective, kind of thinking that through all the way. And that's a long-term approach. So
yeah, thank you. And I do think that having one person who owns it can be really, really helpful, because if you have a committee, nobody owns it, nobody owns the outcome, et cetera, et cetera. You need somebody who's comfortable going cross-functional, who can talk to the marketers as well as the buyers as well as the engineers, right? Because to optimize PLG, quite often you need to impact the roadmap. You need to trade off a customer-facing feature versus a go-to-market feature, right? And so that also means you need buy-in from high above for this activity, because otherwise you're not going to get there. You're never going to be able to fully operationalize a PLG motion.
Yeah, so you've got to understand what's possible. You got to understand what senior management needs are, financial investment at every level. It's really a strategic exercise to think about integrating all these different functions in order to optimize that funnel. Well, Chris, this is a great conversation. Thank you very much for taking the time to kind of think about all this. It's clear that there's much more to CRO than just fixing that landing page, although that seems like it's helpful, but it's very helpful.
It's a critical part.
It is.
But it's not the whole thing. Yeah.
It's not the whole thing. You got thinking end to end for all buyer personas across the buyer's journey is where it's at, and you're clearly skilled at doing that. If people want to connect with you and learn more about your services and how you might be able to help them, what's the best way to do that?
Sure. So easiest way is on LinkedIn. Find me as Chris Kirsch. Kirsch is Kirsch. And I don't have the website up, but I'll have it soon, is cybermarketingclinic.com.
Excellent. Great. Chris, thanks for taking the time for this conversation.
Thank you.